This time on KEI Fabrication.
Alright, you guys watch the oil pressure gauge for me while I try to get this to turn over again. Alright folks, so let me explain. Alright, we're about to take our life in our hands.
Hurry up! We're gonna go right down.
Getting ready to go on another little reconnaissance mission.
Nice.
Hey folks, my name is Mike. This is KEI Fabrication and welcome to my shop. And this is my most recent project, and this is my shop truck, my daily driver, my race truck, my garbage truck, and my all-around performance vehicle. If you want to follow along with the channel, you can see the progress of the build on this truck and all the modifications that have been made. So this truck has already been to car shows, it's been road racing, it's been drag racing, and it's been circle track racing. We've got a bunch more new projects in the queue. We're looking forward to meeting more of you, and for those of you who've been with the channel for a while, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate your comments and the interaction and encouragement. I hopefully through this project we've gained some credibility with you folks, and let's see what's coming up next. Folks, we're back in the shop. Man, this thing makes me smile every time I come in. So we're on a mission this morning. I got on Facebook Marketplace and I saw somebody advertising a Gen 1 Chevrolet engine. I've probably had 6 or 7 of these things laying around 20 years ago, and when I got out of that kind of stuff I had to go buy it all again. So this engine came out of a 70 Chevy pickup that is going to get LS swapped. It is a later model engine. I'm going to in a couple of minutes I'm going to take the number off of the block stamp and figure out what it came out of. Definitely much newer. I would say it's probably early 80s, maybe a little newer. Small plugs. This doesn't have the 3970010. It's just got the 5.7 logo. However, it's going to do exactly what I want, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. And also I got a transmission with a shifter on it. It's just a 3-speed cast iron. That's okay. Many of these folks, that's what they ran back in the day. So the purpose of that is to use it as a mock-up in the modified. So I need to know, first of all, I've got to put it in and estimate where the engine was, doing some scaling off of the photographs. With that package, I'll be able to make my engine mounts, the transmission mount, the transmission tunnel, including where the shifter is supposed to be, and then we can use that to locate the radiator. It already has the early short water pump on it, which is what I needed for this, so it just made sense to pick this up. And as a bonus, it may even run. So I did pull the plugs. I stuck a scope in a couple of the cylinders and it looked good. It had antifreeze in it. The people I bought it from were super nice, and said they ran and drove the truck up and down the street before they pulled it out. It took a little tumble when they were storing it. It bent the alternator bracket back and stuff like that, but the fan is going to get thrown away because it got bent, and once they get bent there's no balance in them or anything like that. So again, it took a little tumble, bent some things around. Nothing catastrophic. Oil in the oil pan. I was able to pull a valve cover while I was there because it just had the little wing nuts, and it's really actually pretty clean inside. So I'm confident that it'll run again, and I'll do a startup on that, put an oil pressure gauge on it, see what it looks like, and maybe initially we'll use this engine to get this thing moving around. The other thing this will allow me to do is build a drive shaft. So I've got a bunch of different donor drive shafts with the correct slip yoke. I got to figure out what it needs for a universal joint on the back, and I should be able to put together a drive shaft. So this takes me another whole level ahead in terms of being able to figure out more of the unknowns. So All right, let's get this thing in the shop and unloaded. Alright, so one of the things this didn't come with was a starter, and up in my collection of goodies up there I found a 96 Vortex starter. I have no idea if it's the right tooth diameter for the flywheel that's on it, and it was good when I took it off 6 years ago, but I don't know if it's any good. So the other thing I did was I pulled all the plugs, I put some engine fogging oil in all the cylinders, and I did bar the engine over before I bought it to make sure it wasn't stuck. And I've got the starter here hooked to a battery. I found a couple of bolts in my other collection of miscellaneous hardware over there. And I'm going to do the old cross out the solenoid thingy. And first we'll see if the starter engages, and second we'll see if the engine turns over. So now that I've got the key, I will try to turn it over without shorting everything out here. Stand out of the way because I expect oil to come flying out of the made it click. Connections aren't the best on this old starter. Let's see if that flywheel jammed up. Doesn't appear that it has. Well, I might have to do this differently. Unfortunately, I think I got a little bind in the starter, and I think I've got the stuff coming out of the cylinders. I hope it's not right. Now, as terrible as it sounds, I think it's just the oil I sprayed in that's coming out of the cylinders. There's definitely a little water in the cylinders, so I'm glad I sprayed oil in there. The plugs look dry though, so maybe the cylinder was all the way down, and that's... Well, apparently it's got oil pressure. before I fired it off, I would have had to put an oil pressure gauge on it because, as you can see, the oil pressure line was just snipped off. And it did something, even turning it over as low as it did. So I actually have an oil pressure gauge I'm going to plug into this thing. With no plugs in it, it's whipping over a pretty decent RPM. Let's see what it's got for oil pressure. Alright, you guys watch the oil pressure again. We'll try this another time. Come on. I'm liking it. I think while I got it, the plugs out and I got it turning over, I'm going to try a compression test, even though it's not whipping over very fast. Most of that is due to the starter growl. What I'm also going to try is loosening the starter bolts and just see if there's enough give in the holes through the starter to see if it will stop growling on that flywheel. Alright, so I wasn't able to do a compression test for a couple of reasons. My 40-year-old compression test gauge gave up the ghost. And now that the plugs are in, the starter is not turning the motor over. It's totally not the right starter for this application, and the tooth count is off. It's bound right up, drawing all kinds of amperage. So I gotta wait till I get a better starter and see what we can do from there. So I'm gonna have to put this little project on hold for now, and the encouraging thing is that it had oil pressure at a very low rotating RPM. That's really good. And when I did have the compression gauge in, it was definitely laboring when it turned it over, but the starter just didn't have enough oomph to turn it over with any of the plugs in. So I got to resolve that issue. Parts stores are closed today, so tomorrow I may run down and buy a starter for an actual Gen 1 small block. Well, that's as close as an engine has been in this car for probably 40 years. So I'm just going to put some blocks of wood across the frame to put the engine in over there and get it out of the way. Obviously those headers have to come off because this had straight headers coming off of the head and then came along and curved down. The original set of headers was just a set of zoomies, just a 16, 18 inches long, sticking out the side. Later on, Roger, the owner, told me that my dad made a set of headers that came out more like a traditional modified header. So that's something that I'll have to pick up. So anyway, I'm just moving it over there, set it out there, get it out of the way, get it off the hook, and take the weight off of the beam. And I may just strap that engine down on some wood going across the frame and fire it up sitting right there. Might as well use it as a test stand. Okay folks, I'm trying to do a first fire of the engine I bought off of Facebook Marketplace. I bought it as a mock-up engine. I have no idea what the history is other than the person I bought it from said that it ran. Doesn't really matter whether it does or not for what my purposes are, but because it was 99% complete, I figured I'd give it a shot. So I got it sitting in the frame. It's really just resting on the oil pan and the headers on a cross member. I've strapped it down as an extra safety precaution. I've got it dangling from the overhead hoist. With some help of some friends at a local parts store, I was able to get the correct starter for it because it's a late model block with an early truck flywheel. So there was some things that we had to make sure was correct so the Bendix wouldn't bind. So I'm going to hook up my ignition wire. Don't forget, it's the yellow wire. So my ignition wire, if I got enough length here so my battery get hooked up. And again, I have not tried to start this yet. I've not put any starting fluid in it or anything like that. And I've got a starter wire here. Got an oil pressure gauge here. It made sure that the throttle return spring is on. And I'm really just looking to see if it fires. It's got an HEI distributor in it that actually, distributor cap was knocked loose. But let's see. So it's turning over better than it ever has. I'm not positive it has spark, but there's only one way to find out. How can you beat that? That was too easy. So I think what I might do is hook a gas can up and see if I can get it to run more than just a few seconds. But just for fun. So 35 pounds of air pressure. Doesn't sound too bad. Alright, let's see if we can get it to run a little longer. Alright, I got a gas can hooked up to the fuel pump. I tried pouring a little fuel into the carburetor. And let's see what we can accomplish here. I'll hook up my ignition. Remember, yellow wire. Alright, starter wire. Everything looks good. Motor strapped down. Whoop. Think we got a leak. Apparently the fuel pump's working. Thinking it's the end of this hose is cut, so I'm going to just trim it back a little bit. Try this again. Yellow wire. Starter. not going to run it any more than that. Two reasons. The carburetor obviously needs work, and it's super loud. I've had my neighbors complain in the past because I start up noisy engines here. Has good oil pressure. Engine doesn't sound too bad. Probably with a tune-up and a good carburetor, it should be all right. So that's really all I needed to know about it for now. So I'm going to do some other work that's more important, I guess. So that was a nice little experiment. Sounds like we might have a decent engine. Someday I'll put a good cap on it, good rotor, plugs, and fix the wires.
Next time on KEI Fabrication.
Alright, so I've got a 2x3 cross member going underneath. It's laid down so we get less clearance issues. And I've got the motor mount on the... So for now it'll just return to its driver's side and the passenger service, side, if you will. And that is roughed in. A mock-up engine to get stuff done for this car.